Dr. Lisa Carter wiped the dust from her gloves as she stared at the strange symbols carved into the ancient stone. The air in the underground chamber was thick and cold, making her breath visible in small puffs. She had been working in these ruins for 3 weeks now. Every day brought new mysteries about the Faldari people who had lived here millions of years ago. "Computer, increase light intensity by 20%, she said to her portable scanner. The device hummed softly and cast brighter beams across the carved wall. The symbols seemed to dance in the improved lighting, and Lisa felt her heart race with excitement. These markings were different from anything she had found before. Above ground, on Kepler Station, Captain Jake Murphy was having his own important day. He stood on the bridge of the exploration ship U.S. Horizon, watching the main screen show stars he had never seen before. Today was first contact day with the Zephyrian Collective, and Jake felt both nervous and excited. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel," reported Communications Officer Ben Torres. "They're using the universal language protocols we sent them last week." Jake straightened his uniform and nodded. "Put them on screen, Ben." The main display flickered and showed a creature that looked almost human, but with pale blue skin and large, kind eyes. The being spoke in a melodic voice that the translation system converted to English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Speaker Velnara of the Zephyrian Collective. We welcome you to our part of the galaxy with open hearts and peaceful intentions." Jake smiled broadly. "Thank you, Speaker Velnara. I am Captain Jake Murphy, representing humanity. We come seeking friendship and knowledge." The first meeting went better than anyone had hoped. The Zephyrians were friendly and curious about human culture. They offered to share their technology and invited human scientists to visit their worlds. Jake felt proud to represent his species in such a positive first contact. Meanwhile, Ambassador Helen Ross was already busy in the diplomatic quarters, meeting with representatives from 12 different alien species that made up the Zephyrian Collective. Each species looked different, but all seemed genuinely interested in welcoming humanity into their galactic community. "Your people have much to offer," said Ambassador Kekstolen, a tall being with silver skin. "We have studied your radio signals and are impressed by your creativity and determination." Helen smiled warmly. "We're eager to learn from you as well. Our scientists are particularly interested in your faster-than-light travel methods." Back in the ruins, Lisa was making progress with the ancient text. Her translation software was slowly decoding the Faldari language, and she was beginning to understand what the symbols meant. The words that appeared on her screen made her stomach feel tight with worry. "The children will come from the edge of darkness," she read aloud. "Ow! They will carry the fire that burns between stars. Their hands will reshape what was made, and their voices will wake what sleeps." Lisa frowned. This sounded like some kind of prophecy, but she needed more context to understand it fully. She moved her scanner to the next section of the wall and continued her work. On the horizon, the cultural exchange was going wonderfully. Zephyrians had brought gifts of beautiful crystalline art and advanced medical supplies. In return, the humans shared music, literature, and samples of Earth's foods. The alien visitors seemed particularly fascinated by chocolate and coffee. "Your people have such interesting complexity," observed Dr. Kelnara, a Zephyrian scientist. "Most species we know focus on either logic or emotion, but humans seem to blend both in fascinating ways." Jake felt proud of his species as he watched the interactions. The crew was representing humanity well, showing their best qualities of curiosity, kindness, and adaptability. But while the celebrations continued in space, Lisa was uncovering something troubling in the ancient ruins. She had found a larger chamber behind the first one. This room contained a massive stone tablet covered in detailed carvings. The translation software was working faster now, having learned more of the Faldari language. "Warning to all who follow," the text began. "We record this message in our final days as the darkness closes around us. The prophecy speaks of those who will come after, and we have seen signs that the time draws near." Lisa's hands shook as she read more. The Faldari had been an advanced civilization, possibly more advanced than any species currently in the galaxy. But something had destroyed them completely, leaving only these hidden ruins as evidence they had ever existed. They will emerge from the small blue world at the galaxy's edge, the prophecy continued. Their nature will be unlike others, for they carry within them the seeds of change. They will spread quickly among the stars, and their presence will awaken forces that have slept since the first darkness. Lisa realized with growing alarm that this description sounded exactly like humanity. Earth was indeed a blue world at the galaxy's edge, and humans were spreading rapidly through space. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence, she continued, reading, hoping to find more details. The next section of the tablet was clearer, and the words made her blood run cold. The final emergence will test all who live. The children of the blue world will bring either salvation or destruction to the galaxy. They cannot be stopped, for it is their nature to grow and change and reach beyond their limits. All civilizations must choose, unite with them or be consumed. By the chaos they bring, Lisa sat back hard in her chair, staring at the ancient words. This was clearly a prophecy about humanity, written millions of years before humans had even evolved. But how could an extinct civilization have known about Earth and its future inhabitants? She noticed there was more text at the bottom of the tablet, but this section was damaged and harder to read. She adjusted her scanner and worked carefully to decode the faded symbols. The builders know, she finally made out. The builders have always known. The pattern repeats, but this time will be different. This time, the sleepers may not wake in time. Lisa didn't understand what builders or sleepers meant, but the message was clear enough. Humanity was somehow central to an ancient prophecy that predicted major changes for the entire galaxy. She activated her emergency communicator to contact Kepler Station. This discovery was too important to keep to herself. Kepler Station, this is Dr. Carter? I need to speak with the director immediately. I found something that could affect our entire first contact mission. While Lisa waited for a response, she photographed every symbol on the tablet and ran additional scans. The Valdari had left this message for a reason, and she suspected it was meant to be found by humanity specifically, above ground. Jake was concluding his successful first contact mission. The Zephyrians had invited humanity to establish a permanent embassy in their space, and they had offered to share star maps showing the locations of other friendly civilizations. This is a historic day, Jake told his crew as they prepared to return to Kepler Station. We've just opened the door to a whole new chapter of human history. He had no idea that far below the surface of the dead world they were orbiting, Lisa Carter had just uncovered evidence that humanity's emergence into galactic society had been predicted millions of years ago, and that this emergence would somehow change the fate of every living being in the galaxy. As the horizon departed for home carrying news of successful first contact, Lisa remained in the ruins. Working frantically to decode more of the ancient warning, she had a terrible feeling that the friendly welcome humanity had just received might not last very long once other species learned about the prophecy. The oldest foretelling in the galaxy had finally been found, and it spoke of one threat that would change everything. That threat was humanity itself. 6 months had passed since the discovery of the Valdari prophecy, and the galaxy felt different now. Commander Alex Stone gripped the armrest of his command chair as his ship approached the Krillian blockade. The massive alien vessels hung in space like dark metal mountains, blocking the main trade route between human and Zephyrian space. Yes, sir. The Krillians are demanding we stop and submit to inspection, reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from the communications station. They say it's part of new containment protocols. Alex felt his jaw tighten. Containment protocols. The words had become common throughout the galaxy in recent months, always directed at human ships and settlements. What had started as friendly, first contact was slowly turning into something much more dangerous. Tell them we're on a peaceful diplomatic mission, Alex replied. We have proper clearance from the Galactic Trade Commission. The response came quickly, and it wasn't friendly. A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking through the translation system with obvious anger. Human vessel, you will power down your engines and prepare for boarding. Your species has been identified as a priority containment risk. Compliance is not optional. Alex looked at his crew. They were all young, eager officers who had signed up to explore the galaxy and make friends with alien civilizations. Now they found themselves facing hostility everywhere they went. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Ensign Rick Hayes, the weapons officer. Before Alex could answer, the Krillian ships began moving closer. Their massive hulls blocked out the stars, and weapon ports opened along their sides. The message was clear: submit or face the consequences. Meanwhile, back on the dead world of Faldara Prime, Dr. Lisa Carter was working with her new partner, an alien archaeologist named Vistalar. The Meridian scientist had joined her research after his own people discovered similar prophecy stones on their homeworld. "The pattern is the same everywhere," Vistalar said, his forearms working delicately to clean another ancient tablet. "Every civilization that reached sufficient age has records of this prophecy. The Valdari were not unique in their warning." Lisa nodded grimly. Over the past months, they had found evidence that the prophecy existed in dozens of different forms. Across the galaxy, each version was slightly different. But they all spoke of the same thing: the emergence of a species that would fundamentally change galactic civilization. "But look at this section," Lisa said, pointing to newly decoded text. "Valdari didn't just disappear. They were eliminated systematically. Every colony, every outpost, every trace of their civilization was wiped out." Vistalar's large eyes grew wider as he studied the evidence. The destruction was precise, planned. This was not war or natural disaster. Someone, or something, wanted to erase them completely. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine.
Valdari
Had been incredibly advanced, possibly more so than any current galactic civilization. If something could destroy them so thoroughly, what chance did humanity have? On Earth, President Nicole Warren sat in the emergency session of the Terran Council, listening to reports that grew worse each day. Intelligence Officer Ryan Blake stood at the front of the room, displaying holographic data that painted a grim picture. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly," Ryan reported. "In the past month, we've lost contact with 17 human colonies. 3 more have reported attacks by unknown vessels. The pattern suggests coordinated action by multiple alien species." President Warren studied the star map, showing human settlements across the galaxy. Red markers indicated lost colonies, yellow showed those under threat, and green marked the few that remained safe. "There was far too much red on the map. What about our allies?" asked General Patricia Moore. "The Zephyrians promised to support us." Ryan's expression grew darker. "The Zephyrians have gone silent. Our last message from them was 3 weeks ago. They mentioned something about ancient obligations and preservation of galactic stability." The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. Even their friendliest allies were turning against humanity. "There's more," Ryan continued. "Our intelligence networks have detected the formation of something called the Preservation Accord. It appears to be a secret alliance of major galactic civilizations, all united by their shared fear of us." President Warren felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her shoulders. What exactly are they afraid of? "According to intercepted communications, they believe our very existence threatens the stability of galactic civilization. They keep referring to something called the final emergence, and claim that ancient warnings have told them humanity must be contained or eliminated." Back in space, Commander Stone was facing the immediate reality of this growing hostility. Krillian ships had surrounded his vessel, and boarding parties were preparing to come aboard. "Sir, I'm detecting weapon signatures from the Krillian ships," reported Ensign Hayes. "They're targeting our engines and life support systems." Alex realized he had a choice to make. He could surrender and hope the Krillians would treat his crew fairly, or he could try to fight his way out. Neither option seemed likely to end well. "All hands prepare for emergency acceleration," he ordered. "Plot a course back to human space. Maximum speed." The ship lurched forward as the engines engaged at full power. The Krillian vessels immediately responded, firing energy weapons that lit up space around the human ship. Alex felt the deck shake under his feet as near misses sent vibrations through the hull. "Return fire, target their weapon systems only," Alex commanded. "We're not here to start a war, but we're not going to be captured either." The battle was brief but intense. The human ship was smaller and faster than the Krillian vessels, but it was also outnumbered. Alex managed to get his ship clear of the blockade, but not before taking significant damage. "Casualty report," he called out as they reached safe distance. 6 injured, no fatalities, reported Dr. Janet Hill from sickbay. But our hull is compromised in 3 sections, and we've lost main communications. Alex nodded grimly. They had escaped, but barely. And this had been just a minor encounter compared to what other human ships were facing across the galaxy. The real shock came when they limped back to human space and received an emergency broadcast from Earth. President Warren's face appeared. On the main screen, her expression grave and tired. "Citizens of humanity," she began, "I must inform you of a tragedy that has befallen our people. The colony of New Montana has been destroyed. All 2 million inhabitants are presumed dead." Alex felt the blood drain from his face. New Montana had been one of humanity's most successful colonies, a thriving world with cities, farms, and research facilities. The attack was carried out by unknown vessels using weapons technology beyond our current understanding, the president continued. Survivors from the orbital stations report that these weapons somehow turned matter itself against our people. The planet's surface has been rendered uninhabitable. The message continued with details about evacuation procedures and emergency protocols, but Alex had stopped listening. He was thinking about the prophecy Dr. Carter had discovered, about ancient warnings and civilizations that had vanished without a trace. On Valdara Prime, Lisa and Vistala were making their own disturbing discoveries. It found a hidden chamber containing what appeared to be actual historical records rather than prophecies. "This changes everything," Lisa whispered as she read the translated text. The Valdari weren't the first civilization to face this threat. There have been others, many others. The records spoke of a repeating pattern throughout galactic history. Advanced civilizations would emerge, grow, and prosper, but eventually, something would identify them as a threat and eliminate them completely. The Valdari had been just the most recent victims before humanity. "Look at this section," Vistalar said, pointing to another part of the record. "They mention the builders and the sleepers. These terms appear in multiple contexts, but I cannot determine their meaning." Lisa felt a growing sense of dread. The pattern was becoming clear. Humanity wasn't just facing hostility from current galactic civilizations. They were facing something much older and more dangerous, something that had been eliminating threats to galactic stability for millions of years. Her communicator buzzed with an emergency message from Kepler Station. The news was worse than she had feared. The attacks on human colonies weren't random acts of violence by frightened aliens. They were systematic elimination operations carried out by forces using technology that defied current scientific understanding. As she read the reports of New Montana's destruction, Lisa realized that humanity was facing the same fate that had befallen the Valdari millions of years ago. Something ancient and powerful had decided that humans posed a threat to galactic civilization, and it was taking steps to remove that threat permanently. The prophecy had been right about one thing. Humanity's emergence would change everything, but the change might be their own extinction. Just like all the other civilizations that had come before them, the galaxy had seemed so welcoming just 6 months ago. Now it felt like a trap that was slowly closing around them, guided by ancient forces that viewed humanity not as potential friends, but as a problem that needed to be solved. Dr. Lisa Carter's hands trembled as she placed the ancient data crystal into her scanner. She and Vistalar had found it deep within the most hidden chamber of the Valdari ruins on Nexus 7, sealed behind layers of protective barriers that had taken weeks to bypass safely. "Are you certain this device will work?" asked Vistalar, his forearms adjusting the translation equipment nervously. "The crystal appears to contain massive amounts of information." Lisa nodded, though she felt far from certain about anything. These days, the galaxy had become a dangerous place for humans, and every new discovery seemed to make things worse rather than better. But they needed answers, and this crystal might contain the truth about what was really happening. "Computer, begin data extraction," she said. The scanner hummed to life, and streams of alien text began flowing across the display. But these weren't just prophecies or warnings. These were historical records, detailed accounts of events that had happened millions of years ago. "Lisa, look at this," Vistaller said, pointing to a section of the translation. The Valdari were not the original inhabitants of their worlds. They were refugees, fleeing from something they called the cleansing. Lisa read over his shoulder, her eyes widening as the truth began to emerge. The Valdari had once lived on different worlds, in a different part of the galaxy. They had been forced to run when their original civilization was destroyed by entities they called the Void Seekers. "But there's more," she said, scrolling through the data. The Valdari weren't the first to face the Void Seekers. There were others before them, many others. A few million years the same pattern repeats. Meanwhile, in space near the destroyed colony of New Montana, Captain Jake Murphy was learning the same terrible truth from a different source. His ship had been investigating the attack site when they detected something moving in the debris field around the dead planet. "Captain, we're picking up an unknown vessel," reported Lieutenant Ben Torres. "It's not matching any known alien design, and it's moving toward us." Jake studied the object on the main screen. It looked like a massive dark crystal, longer than his entire ship, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange energy patterns flickered along its sides. "Hail them," Jake ordered. Though something deep in his mind told him this was a mistake, the response came immediately, but not as a communication. The dark vessel fired a beam of energy that passed harmlessly through the horizons, shields, and hull, but did something far worse. It began scanning the minds of everyone on board. Jake felt the alien presence in his thoughts, cold and analytical, examining his memories like files in a computer. The sensation was horrible, like having ice water poured directly into his brain. Around the bridge, his crew members were crying out in pain and fear. But then something unexpected happened. The alien presence recoiled, as if it had touched something it didn't expect to find. Jake felt confusion from the entity, then what might have been surprise. "Impossible." A voice spoke directly into his mind, without using the ship's communication system. "You are not as the others. You are chaotic, unpredictable. How can this be?" Before Jake could respond, the dark vessel pulled away and vanished into the void, leaving the Horizon's crew shaken but alive. They had encountered one of the Void Seekers and somehow survived. Back on Earth, Security Chief Dana Walsh was interrogating a captured alien agent in a secure facility beneath the Pentagon. The prisoner was a Krillian intelligence officer who had been caught trying to sabotage a human research station. "Why are your people so afraid of us?" Dana asked for the 100th time. "We've done nothing to threaten you." Krillian's large eyes rolled back in his head, and when he spoke, his voice sounded strange and hollow. "The Great Builders know. The Great Builders have always known. The pattern must be preserved. The chaos must be contained." Dana frowned. The prisoner had been saying similar things for days, but never in a way that made sense. It was as if something else was speaking through him. "What builders?" she pressed. "What pattern?" The alien's body began to shake, and his voice changed again, becoming more desperate and frightened. "Help us," he whispered. "We cannot control our own actions. The sacred sites," he whispered to us. "Tell us what to think, what to do. We do not hate you, but we cannot stop ourselves." Dana felt a chill run down her spine. The alien was claiming that his people were being controlled by something else, forced to act against their own will. If that was true, then humanity wasn't just facing hostile aliens. They were facing something that could control the minds of entire civilizations. On Nexus 7, Dr. Carter was uncovering the full scope of the threat. The Valdari records spoke of an ancient race called the Architects, beings of immense power, who had shaped the galaxy according to their vision of perfect order. "The Architects created many species," she read aloud. "Each was designed for a specific purpose, to fill a particular role in their grand design. But they made one critical error in their planning." Vistaller leaned closer to the screen. "What error?" "Oh, they created species that were too successful. The Valdari were designed to be perfect survivors, able to adapt to any threat and overcome any challenge. But they grew beyond what the Architects intended. They became independent, creative, unpredictable. The records went on to describe how the architects had built fail-safe systems into their galactic civilization. Hidden control devices were placed on every world, in every species' most sacred locations. These devices could influence thoughts and emotions, making entire populations believe whatever the architects wanted them to believe. And when a species grew too powerful or too independent, Lisa continued reading, the architects would activate their final failsafe. The Void Seekers would be released to eliminate the threat. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. The architects themselves were gone, extinct for millions of years. But their automated systems continued to function. Still following the original programming to maintain galactic stability at any cost, the Void Seekers are not controlled by living beings, Lisa realized. They're following ancient programming, eliminating any species that shows signs of becoming too powerful or too chaotic. Vistelar's skin had turned pale as he absorbed this information. Then the hostility our species show toward humans. It is not natural. We are being controlled. Lisa nodded grimly. Every major civilization in the galaxy has been manipulated for millions of years. The architects designed the system to turn species against any potential threat before it could become too powerful. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. Captain Murphy's encounter with the Void Seeker had been recorded and transmitted back to Earth, where analysts were studying every second of the alien entity's behavior. The machine seemed confused by human thought patterns, reported Dr. Gary White, the lead analyst. It called us chaotic and unpredictable, as if this was something it had never encountered before. President Warren studied the data with growing hope. Are you saying we might have some kind of natural defense against these entities? Possibly, Dr. White replied. Human consciousness appears to work differently from other species. We might be partially immune to the mental control systems the architects built into the galaxy. This theory was supported by reports from the few alien allies who had managed to break free from the ancient programming. They all described the same thing. Contact with humans seemed to help them think more clearly, to see past the artificial fears and hatred that had been planted in their minds. Dr. Carter received this news while still working in the Voldari ruins. She realized that humanity's chaotic, unpredictable nature wasn't a flaw or a weakness. It was exactly what the galaxy needed to break free from millions of years of artificial control. The prophecy wasn't warning about humanity as a threat, she said to Vistola. It was predicting humanity as a solution, or not the danger. The architects feared, or the cure for what they did to the galaxy. But even as this understanding dawned, new reports were coming in from across human space. The Void Seekers were increasing their attacks, and more alien fleets were moving toward human territory. The ancient systems had identified humanity as the ultimate threat to their control, and they were mobilizing everything they had to eliminate the human species before it could spread its chaotic influence any further. The battle for the galaxies. Freedom was about to begin. Humanity found itself standing alone against forces that had controlled galactic civilization for millions of years. But for the first time since the attacks began, there was hope. Humanity had something the architects had never planned for. The ability to think and act in ways that couldn't be predicted or controlled. The oldest foretelling had spoken of one threat that would change everything. Now they knew the truth. Humanity wasn't the threat. Humanity was the answer to a threat that had been hidden in the galaxy's shadows for far too long. Admiral Kevin Torres watched the tactical display with growing alarm as hundreds of red dots moved across the star map. Each dot represented an alien fleet heading toward human space, and there were far too many of them to count. The newly formed Human Defense Fleet had only 60 ships, while the enemy had thousands. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies," said Commander Sarah Blake from the communications station. "The Void Seekers have destroyed 3 more settlements in the past 12 hours. They're not just attacking our military targets. Anymore, they're trying to wipe out every trace of human existence." Kevin nodded grimly. The reports had been getting worse each day. The ancient machines weren't content to simply defeat humanity in battle. They were systematically destroying everything humans had touched, including historical records stored. On alien worlds and even space stations humans had visited briefly. "What about the evacuation efforts?" he asked. proceeding as fast as possible, but we don't have enough ships. Millions of civilians are still trapped on the outer worlds. Far from the military preparations, Dr. Lisa Carter was racing against time in her laboratory on Kepler Station. She and her team, including human engineer Pete Williams and the alien defector Foretelling, were trying to locate the source of the architect control system. The energy signatures point to the galactic core, Pete said, studying the complex readings on his instruments. But that's impossible. Nothing can survive in that environment. Foretelling, a former Krillian scientist who had broken free from the mental programming, shook his large head. Not impossible. Hidden. My people have legends of a place that exists between spaces where the great builders made their final stand. Lisa felt excitement despite the dire situation. A pocket dimension. The architects could have created a hidden space within the galactic core, protected from the radiation and gravitational forces. But how do we get there? Pete asked. Our ships can't even get close to the galactic center without being torn apart. Foretelling's eyes glowed with an idea. The ancient gateways. My species found remnants of them on our sacred worlds. We always thought they were just decorative, but what if they were functional? Meanwhile, Ambassador Helen Ross was experiencing the galaxy's hostility firsthand as she tried desperately to communicate with former allies. The Zephyrian Collective, once humanity's closest friends, had become cold and distant. I'm sorry, Ambassador Ross, said Speaker Velnara, her once kind eyes now hard and unfriendly. But the Preservation Accord has made its decision. Humanity must be contained for the safety of all galactic civilization. Helen felt her heart break as she looked at her former friend. Velnara, you know us? You've worked with us for months. We're not a threat to anyone. The Zephyrian's expression flickered. For a moment, showing confusion and pain, I know you speak truth, but the sacred voices tell us otherwise. They show us visions of chaos and destruction. We cannot resist their wisdom. Helen realized that Velnara was fighting against the mental control, but losing the battle. The ancient programming was too strong for most aliens to overcome on their own. Back on Earth, the situation was becoming desperate. President Nicole Warren stood in the Emergency Command Center, watching reports flood in from across human space. The coordinated alien fleets were closing in from all directions, while Void-Seeker attacks were intensifying. Madam President, reported General Patricia Moore, our deep space sensors are detecting something massive approaching from the galactic rim. It's bigger than anything we've ever seen. The main display showed a structure that defied imagination. It was larger than a space station, larger than some moons, and it was moving steadily toward Earth. Energy readings suggested it contained technology far beyond anything currently known in the galaxy. Is it another Void-Seeker? President Warren asked. Negative, replied the sensor technician. This is something different, something old. It's broadcasting on frequencies we've never encountered before. As if responding to their discussion, the massive object began transmitting a message. The voice that came through the speakers was ancient and cold. Speaking perfect English despite having no prior contact with humanity. Children of the blue world, the voice intoned, you have exceeded acceptable parameters. Your chaotic nature threatens the stability that has been maintained for millions of years. Compliance or extinction. Choose now. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. They were facing the source of the architect control system itself, and it was demanding humanity's surrender. Captain Jake Murphy, now commanding a small fleet of human ships, was making his own discoveries about humanity's unique nature. During a skirmish with a Krillian patrol, something extraordinary had happened. Captain, the enemy ships have stopped firing, reported Lieutenant Ben Torres. They're just floating there. Jake studied the tactical display in confusion. The Krillian vessels had been attacking aggressively just moments before, but now they seemed dead in space. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead Krillian ship, Ben continued. It's Commander Vexgrin. He says they've broken free from the mind control and want to help us. The Krillian commander appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features showing relief and confusion. Human captain, we apologize for our aggression. Something about your presence disrupts the sacred voices. For the first time in generations, we can think clearly. Jake felt a surge of hope. How many of your people have broken free? Not many, but the number grows each day. Those who spend time near humans begin to question the ancient commands. Your chaotic thoughts seem to interfere with the control systems. This information was immediately transmitted to Dr. Carter's team, confirming their theories about human immunity to architect programming. But it also revealed something more important. Humans could help other species break free from the mental control. We need to get this information to the galactic core, Lisa said urgently. If we can disrupt the main control system, we might be able to free entire civilizations at once. Pete was working frantically on the ancient gateway system they had discovered. I think I've figured out how to activate it, but the power requirements are enormous. We'll need to channel the energy output of an entire star. Corthalon nodded thoughtfully. There is a way. The architects built collection stations around certain stars to power their greatest works. If we can find one that still functions. The race was on. While alien fleets converged on human space and void seekers intensified their attacks, Lisa's team worked to unlock the secrets of architect technology. They had located an ancient power station orbiting a distant star, and early scans suggested. It was still operational, but time was running out faster than anyone realized. The massive architect construct that had threatened Earth was not alone. Similar structures were emerging from hidden locations throughout the galaxy, all converging on human worlds with the same cold purpose. The complete elimination of humanity and anyone had been influenced by human contact. Admiral Torres received the devastating news while coordinating the defense of the Sol system. Sir, we've lost contact with the colonies in the Vega sector. Long-range sensors show no life signs on any of the planets. Kevin felt the weight of command crushing down on him. Entire worlds, millions of people wiped out by ancient machines that viewed human existence as an unacceptable error in their perfect design. What about the research team? He asked. Any word from Dr. Carter? They've reached the power station and are attempting to activate the gateway system. But even if they succeed, we don't know if they can reach the galactic core in time. The final battle for humanity's survival was beginning on multiple fronts. In space around Earth, human ships prepared to face overwhelming odds against alien fleets controlled by ancient programming. In the depths of space, Dr. Carter's team raced to unlock technology that could free the galaxy from millions of years of hidden control. And somewhere in the hidden depths of the galactic core, the true masters of the architect legacy waited, in their pocket dimension, preparing to unleash their final solution to the human problem. They had eliminated countless species over the eons, always maintaining perfect order and stability. But humanity was different from the others. Humans didn't follow predictable patterns, didn't think in orderly ways, and couldn't be controlled by the ancient systems. For the first time in millions of years, the architect legacy faced something it couldn't understand or contain. The oldest foretelling had spoken of one threat that would change everything. Now that threat and the galaxy's ancient masters were about to meet in a confrontation that would determine the future of every living being among the stars. Dr. Lisa Carter felt her stomach drop as the ancient gateway activated around their ship. The space around them twisted and bent in ways that hurt to look at, and suddenly they were somewhere else entirely. The galactic core spread out before them, but they weren't being torn apart by radiation and gravity as they should have been. We're in the pocket dimension, Pete Williams said, staring at his instruments in amazement. The readings are incredible. This place exists outside normal space. Through the viewports, they could see a massive structure floating in the protected bubble of reality. It looked like a city made of crystal and metal, stretching for thousands of kilometers in every direction. At its center sat a tower that pulsed with energy, sending waves of power throughout the galaxy. That's it, whispered Corthalon. The Nexus Prime, the heart of all architect control. They weren't alone in the hidden dimension. As their ship approached the massive facility, they encountered something that made Lisa's blood run cold. Standing in the main control chamber was a figure that shouldn't exist, a being that had supposedly been extinct for millions of years. The Prime Curator was tall and elegant, with features that seemed both beautiful and terrifying. Its skin appeared to be made of flowing metal, and its eyes held the cold intelligence of something that had lived far too long. "Welcome, children of chaos," the Prime Curator said as they entered the chamber. Its voice echoed strangely, as if it came from everywhere at once. "You have traveled far to reach this place, just as I knew you would." Lisa found her voice despite her fear. "You're supposed to be extinct. The architects died out millions of years ago." The being smiled, and the expression was both sad and terrifying. "My people chose extinction rather than witness the failure of their great work. But I remain bound by duty to continue their mission of maintaining galactic order." Around them, the chamber was filled with displays showing every part of the galaxy. Lisa could see the battles raging around Earth, the Void Seekers destroying human colonies, and the alien fleets moving under ancient commands. "Why?" Pete demanded. "Why destroy species that have done nothing wrong?" The Prime Curator gestured to the displays with one long arm. "Because chaos leads to destruction. For millions of years, I have watched species rise and grow until they threaten the stability of all life. The Voldari were first, brilliant and adaptable, but they would have consumed the galaxy in their hunger for knowledge." "So you killed them," Lisa said. "I saved the galaxy from them," the Prime Curator corrected, "just as I saved it from dozens of other species that grew too powerful, too unpredictable. The system works. Order is maintained. Life continues in peace." But as it spoke, Lisa noticed something strange in the being's expression. Pain, loneliness, doubt. "You're not certain anymore, are you?" she said softly. "After millions of years of destroying civilizations, you're starting to wonder if you're wrong." The Prime Curator's metal features flickered with emotion. "I have watched so many die. So many brilliant species cut down just as they began to reach their potential. I tell myself it is necessary, but deep down you know it's wrong," Pete finished. "You're not preserving life. You're preventing it from growing." Meanwhile, in space around Earth, Admiral Kevin Torres was discovering the truth about humanity's unique nature. The massive architect construct approaching Earth had begun its attack, but something unexpected was happening. "Sir, the enemy vessel is experiencing some kind of malfunction," reported Commander Sarah Blake. "Its weapons are firing randomly, and its course is becoming erratic." Kevin studied the tactical display and realized what was happening. The architect construct was trying to analyze human thought patterns to predict their actions. But human minds were too chaotic for its systems to process. The ancient machine was overloading, trying to understand how humans thought. "All ships advance on the enemy vessel," Kevin ordered. "Stay close together and keep our thoughts as random as possible. Sing songs, tell jokes, think about anything, except military tactics." It sounded insane, but it worked. The more chaotic and unpredictable the human crews became, the more confused the architect systems became. Other ancient constructs throughout the galaxy were experiencing the same problems, their perfect programming disrupted by the impossible task of understanding human consciousness. Back in the Nexus Prime, Dr. Carter was making a desperate gambit. "You've been alone for millions of years," she said to the Prime Curator, "making these terrible decisions with no one to talk to, no one to question your choices." The ancient being nodded slowly. "The burden of guardianship is heavy. But who else could bear it, everyone?" Lisa said. "Every species in the galaxy. Instead of controlling them, why not let them choose their own path? Let them make mistakes and learn from them, because they will destroy themselves," the Prime Curator replied. "And when they do, they will take others with them." Pete stepped forward, his engineer's mind working on the problem. "But look at what your control has cost. You've prevented war by committing genocide. You've maintained stability by destroying anyone who might disturb it. Is that really better?" The Prime Curator was quiet for a long moment, studying the displays around them. For the first time in millions of years, it was truly considering another perspective. Your species fascinates me, it finally said. You think in patterns I cannot. Predict. Your minds work in ways that defy logic. When I try to analyze your thoughts, my systems become confused. That's because we're free, Lisa said. We make our own choices, even when they're wrong, even when they're chaotic. That's what makes us alive. The ancient being walked to the central control console, its metal fingers hovering over controls. That could end the war instantly. If I release the control systems, if I allow the galaxy to develop naturally, there will be conflict. There will be suffering, yes, Lisa admitted. But there will also be growth, discovery, and wonder. There will be species helping each other instead of being forced to follow ancient commands. The Prime Curator looked at her with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. And if I am wrong, if chaos truly does lead to destruction, then we'll face that destruction as free beings, Pete said, making our own choices, learning from our mistakes, growing stronger together. For a moment that felt like an eternity, the Prime Curator stood motionless. Then slowly, it began to operate the controls. Perhaps, it said quietly, it is time for someone else to bear the burden of choice. The change was immediate and dramatic. Across the galaxy, the ancient control systems shut down. On thousands of worlds, alien species suddenly found themselves thinking clearly for the first time in their civilization's histories. The artificial fear and hatred of humanity vanished like smoke in the wind. The Void Seekers, their programming, disrupted, stopped their attacks, and drifted powerlessly through space. The massive architect constructs that had been converging on human space began to shut down, their ancient purposes finally fulfilled in a way their creators had never intended. In space around Earth, the alien fleets that had come to destroy humanity suddenly found themselves confused and ashamed. The Zephyrian Captain Velnara was the first to send a message. "Human friends," she said, her voice filled with tears. "We remember now. We remember who you really are. Please forgive us for what we were forced to do." Similar messages poured in from across the galaxy as species after species broke free from millions of years of mental control. The Krillians, the Meridians, even the most hostile aliens began to see humanity as they truly were, chaotic, unpredictable, but fundamentally good beings who wanted to explore and learn and make friends among the stars. Dr. Carter found herself face to face with the Prime Curator as the ancient being prepared to shut down the final systems. "What will you do now?" she asked. The being that had controlled the galaxy for so long smiled. And for the first time, the expression seemed genuine. "I think I will learn what it means to be free. Perhaps I will travel, see what the galaxy becomes when it is allowed to grow naturally." "You're welcome to visit Earth," Lisa offered. "We could use someone with your experience to help us understand what we've inherited." The Prime Curator nodded gratefully. "I would like that. It has been so long since I had a conversation with someone who could surprise me." As the last control systems shut down, the galaxy entered a new age. Humanity had not conquered their enemies or destroyed the ancient threat. Instead, they had done something far more powerful. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be truly free. The prophecy had been fulfilled in a way no one had expected. Humanity had indeed changed everything, but the change was liberation rather than destruction. For the first time in millions of years, every species in the galaxy was free to choose their own path, make their own mistakes, and grow in their own way. The oldest foretelling had spoken of one threat that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. That threat was freedom itself, and humanity had been its unwitting champions. Now, the real adventure could begin, as free species explored the universe together, learning from each other and growing stronger through their diversity and chaos. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.